Hey, Magic fans, welcome back to Captain Clyde's MTG. This is your captain speaking, and we're here today with some more Strixhaven leaks. So let's get the boring stuff out of the way. Remember, like, subscribe, tell your friends and family, get the channel some views, and support me if you would, please. Now, with all that stuff out of the way, let's actually look at some Magic cards and get down to business. So we got a lot of cards today that are foreign. So let's get started here. We'll start on the right with Magma Opus, it looks like. Sure, we'll call it that. So it's a red, blue, and 6. It's 8 mana for an instant mythic. Deals 4 damage divided any way you choose between a number of targets. Tap 2 permanents, and then make a 4/4 blue-red elemental and draw 2 cards. So for 8 mana, I guess that's okay. The interesting thing here is split mana, 2 blue, 2 red, or a combination thereof. You discard the Opus and you create a treasure token. Now, it doesn't say anything about drawing a card, but that doesn't mean this ain't cool because you can actually ramp yourself up. And we saw some cards yesterday where you can actually cast stuff from your graveyard or from your deck for free, but you just got to have mana to get there, right? So you can cast those spells and get those special creatures out. So this may be a thing. Who knows? Also with that, you've got that red, blue, and 1 creature right now that's legal. It's a 0/3. It's only as big as every instant and sorcery in your graveyard. If you discard a card, you get to draw a card. So on turn 3, you could lay that. On turn 4, you could discard 2 cards like this. Basically ramp up to 6 or 7 mana for a dragon while drawing 2 cards. Seems pretty good, but we'll see how that goes. So moving on from that, next here we have the Grinny Ingus. This is pretty much a uncommon reprint. And it says here that for 1 red, you can return it to your hand, basically, and add 2 colorless, or 2 generic mana, whatever you want to call it, and a red mana, only to cast sorceries. So 3 mana, 2/2, not too shabby. Uh, this over here, this is your basic common lesson. Nothing real special here. It's just 5 mana, as you can see. Lesson sorcery to make a 4/4 red-blue creature. So, not so bad. Now, over here, we have Expression of Repetition. So this is a red-blue sorcery. Once you cast it, it lets you look at the top 3 cards. You put 1 in your hand, 1 on the bottom of the library, and then exile the other card, and you can cast it until end of turn. For 2 mana, it seems pretty sweet. Um, so this may be something. Who knows? So moving right along, we'll get to our next panel of 4. This time we'll start over on the left-hand side with some English. Explosive Welcome. I haven't looked at any of these other than the cards I had to translate, so I'll be just as surprised as you. A red and 7, so 8 mana for an instant uncommon. Deals 5 damage to any target, 3 damage to another target, and you get 3 red back. If you got this much mana, you should just be casting dragons and Ugin and stuff. I don't see this being a thing at all. Not even in draft. I mean, 8 mana. Anyway, moving on to the next one. Solve the equation. So blue and 2 colorless for a sorcery. It's uncommon. Search your library for an instant or sorcery card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand and then shuffle. So this is very interesting. This is very much like Merchant Scroll. That was a blue and 1 from back in the day. That was a sorcery. Very similar. So this card might see some play because Merchant Scroll sees play now. So this might be a thing in the current new standard meta. Moving on, we have Created Outburst. Once again, another red-blue spell. It's going to cost an arm and a leg. It's 2 red, 2 blue, and 3, so 7 whole mana. Almost a Ugin. For an instant, that deals 5 damage to any target. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put 1 of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. Once again, this has the ability to be discard to make a treasure token. So you can actually discard cards like this to power up a creature or what have you, or ramp you up in a non-green environment. So very interesting to see how these cards play out in the format. Then next over here, excuse me, we have this card. It's the Expressive Asteroid or Artery or whatever it's called. Anyway, this thing's a 4/4 Magecraft. It's a rare, so 4 mana for 4/4. It's already on rate. The Magecraft says that if this card was to leave the field, you exile it instead, and then put a 4/4 creature, that's red, blue, yada, 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 onto the battlefield in its place. And if that creature dies, then this goes to the graveyard. So basically, what this tells me is I'm gonna make a 4/4. When I swing in and swing into your dudes or to you, and you chump block or whatever to kill this guy, even with a big guy, I'm going to stomp, lightning bolt. We know whatever that new frost spell is, shock, to get 6 damage to kill something, exile the creature, and then get a 4/4 again. So basically, for one removal spell and this, I can kill anything. And also too, if they attempt to kill this, you know, with any kind of removal spell, all you have to do, you could opt, you could shock them, do anything to draw a card, or any kind of instant spell like that, and you basically have just nullified a removal spell in your hand because you get to keep the 4/4 creature. So this seems really good and just really bonkers to me. So I expect to see great things out of this. The real trick will be, is there a red-blue deck that actually take advantage of this, as a kill condition and a playable card. So, moving on. Next thing we got, we'll start over here, the Wandering or Orkagic, or whatever you want to call that thing. So it's 5, it's colorless, it's rare, it's a modal card. You make a 4/4 that whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 2 colorless. If you do, you may copy that spell and choose new targets. So 5 for a 4/4 is already kind of low, especially for something like this, but it is colorless, so it goes in any deck. The ability to copy a spell that an opponent casts could be cool. I still don't see it seeing much play, though, unless Ugin decks become real big. But then again, this isn't a sorcery either, so I think Ugin would actually exile it. Or not an artifact, so interesting. So moving forward to the backside of it, we have Explore the Vast Lands. It's 3 colorless. Sorcery. Each player looks at the top 5 cards. Each player, mind you, each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library. They reveal a land card, or instant or sorcery card from among them. Then puts the cards they revealed this way into their hand, and the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. Each player gains 3 life. So for 3 mana, each player gets a land and or an instant or sorcery. So you get 2 cards for 3, but both players get to do it. This could be a thing. I guess it really depends on what kind of decks you're playing against, what the meta looks like. So I don't know. I kind of like it, but honestly, with each player doing it, I just really don't know. This might be a great EDH, group hug, Panda Bear deck card moving forward. So next we have the Mage Hunter. It's a black and 3 colorless for a 3/4. Whenever an opponent casts or copies an instant or sorcery spell, they lose a life. So say hello to the anti-storm card for all you people out there who hate storm. Now the problem with this card is it's 4 mana. And a real storm deck will probably kill you before you cast this. Or kill this, then kill you. So it is anti-storm. I still think it's very situational. I don't think it's going to be good enough to actually stop a storm deck. But in the current environment and the kind of decks I see molding up in standard with all these cast lots of spells and make things happen and trigger abilities, this might be a real contender as a way to slow those decks down and kind of hinder their progress. Next, we have Make Your Mark. It's a red or white for an instant that gives a +1/+0 until the end of turn. And if this creature dies, you get a 3/2 red-white spirit token. So this could be a great removal spell to swing in or block with a Death Toucher or a large creature, knowing you're going to have to make a trade. But it's the only way to get your stuff out of the way, and then just make your mark on him, still kill and trade off on all the stuff, and still get a 3/2 in exchange. So I think this is a decent common card. Will it see a lot of play? Maybe. I definitely see this getting some play in some red decks or white weenie decks, just because it has the ability to make your cards come back as 3/2 creatures. So when people try to chump block or trade off, not only are you going to trade off, but you're going to get a creature back, so you're actually going to stop them gaining that life because you're going to keep creatures on the battlefield. So I think this has a lot of promise and we'll probably see some play. So moving on to the next ones. Right here, excuse me. Here we have Galzeth Primozar. This is apparently the mythic dragon for the Red-Blue College. Um, Obviously, all the dragons aren't 7. This is now known for sure, since this one is only 4 mana for a 3/4. So, this one apparently has flying, and uh, whenever you attack, you make a treasure. When you make a treasure, these treasure tokens, or all your treasure tokens, actually, instead of sacrificing them, can be tapped to make any color mana to cast only instants and sorceries. So I see an instant sorcery theme, to the red-blue uh, Prismari decks. We've seen some other cards like discard. They make these treasure tokens already. You have Magna, Brazen, Magna's out there. It's gonna make tokens that are treasure tokens. There's a lot of things that make treasure tokens right now that are in red and blue, and this is really gonna abuse that, especially when it comes to all the instants and stuff you can make to get those big red-blue spells we've seen earlier that will just overwhelm your opponent, or just ultimatums in general. I mean, they tap for any color, so what's the matter? Uh, so over here we have Stonebinder's Familiar for 1 white, so 1/1. Uncommon, whenever one or more cards is put into exile, gets +1/+1 counter. Only triggers once each turn. Basically, it's a fix to Johnny's Pride Mate. As long as you exile a card, it gets a counter, but you can only do it once a turn. So if you exile 2 or 3 cards, it doesn't continually uh, get counters like the Pride Mate. Every time you gain life, it gets that many counters, so forth and so on. So basically, a fixed Pride Mate that's a 1/1. So not a terrible thing, but I think the mechanic of exiling cards might be harder than just gaining life, to be honest with you. So um, it might see some play. I still like it. I think it's a good card. So next over here we have the other Elder Dragon. This is the Quandrix Dragon. It's blue, green, and 3 colorless for a 4/4 flying trample. When it enters the battlefield, you double the number of +1/+1 counters on it, on target creature you control. Sorry. And when it attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of creatures you control become equal to this card's power and toughness till end of turn. So if you have, like, for example, um, a Walking Ballista with 3 counters on it, and you swing with this, it now becomes a 4/4 with 3 counters, so basically it's a 7/7. In standard terms, that would be Stone Coil Serpent. You can lay that for 4, make a 4/4 with 4 counters. Lay this, make it an 8/8, and then when you swing with both, it becomes a 4/4 plus 8 counters, so it's a 12/12 trampler. This thing tramples. That's damn near the game. I mean, you're asking for a lot when you do stuff like that, but Magical Christmas Land, that's a thing. So over here we have the Hull Monitor. I know that's what that says, right? So anyway, it's 1 red for a 1/1. Excuse me. It has haste, and for 1 red in the colors, you can tap it, and target creature can't block. So, nothing special. Definitely a little bit of draft fodder there. So we'll move forward. So next we have the Prismari Campus. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be a cycle of lands for this, apparently, it looks like, just like we saw yesterday. They're all dual lands coming to play tapped, and for 4 they scry. So we'll leave it at that. Moving over here to the next one, we have the Maelstrom Muse. Maelstrom Muse, get it? Anyway, so it's a red, a blue, a colorless, and 1 split, so 4 mana for a 2/4. This thing has flying, and when you attack, your next instant or sorcery costs X less to cast, where X is the power of this card at the time of casting. So if you attack and it's a 2, then you pump it, the next thing you cast is 2 less. So basically, if you have a pump spell that costs a red and 3 colorless, or a red 2 color, excuse me, and you attack with this, it's already a 2, so that means that pump spell only costs 1. And, rinse, repeat with anything else you might do, because maybe you could pump it first, then attack and get a better buff spell off of it, or what have you. So for 4 mana and not 4 hard mana to get, this might be a thing. It is an uncommon. Not real big on it, but it is a 2/4 flyer for 4. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. So over here we have Ingenious Inspiration, red and 2 colorless. Deals 3 damage to any target, and learn. Sorry, my bad. So we've already talked about this. Those who don't know, the learn mechanic lets you go get a card or with learn in its super type, which would be like sorcery / learn over here, from outside the game, i.e. your sideboard, and put it directly into your hand. So, uh, it's really going to end up being a broken thing, especially for red, because red's dealing damage and doing this. Also, the flip side of learn, it says right here, excuse me, uh, it says, or discard a card to draw a card. So I think the big thing people are missing here is who cares if you don't go get a card out of your sideboard. For 3 mana, if I have a land in hand, I get to do 3 damage, discard, and draw. I get to cycle through my deck with every learn card. So every learn ability that you cast lets you cycle. I think that's something big that people are missing. They're really looking into this whole, oh, I'm going to jerk cards out of my sideboard, and now the game's all this, that, and the other. What about the fact that you can mill through your deck like no one's business while making good plays with decent cards to find those really powerful cards and just abuse them? So I think that's something everybody's really missing. With that said, the next thing we have here is multiple choice, blue and X. All right, so it's a sorcery. If X is 1, you scry 1, then draw a card. Okay, that's fine. If X is 2, you get to choose a player and return a creature they control to its owner's hands. All right, that's fair for 3. If X is 3, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. All right, so that's a 4/4 for 4, not bad. If X is 4 or more, do all the above. Sweet baby Jesus. Like, this is a better or right on par Sharknado. Like, or Shark Typhoon, excuse me. Um, I mean, 4 mana. So you're paying 5 mana to get a 4/4 blue and red creature, bounce a creature an opponent controls to their hand, and then scry and draw 1. I don't know about you guys, but for 5 mana, I would cast a 4/4 creature that bounced an opponent's creature, scryed and drew me a card all day long. And this thing has options, so if you get it early game and you don't have the mana for it, you can scry and draw 1 away so you can actually get your card base built up or find those lands to make them equivalent. And then later in the game, it's just a bomb. I think this is going to be a very hot rare. This is a must for every blue deck. I mean, this is your win condition, like literally. So yeah, this thing may be really annoying. I mean, thank God it's a sorcery. If it was an instant, it'd be nuts. So moving forward, next here we have Rutha, the Mercurial Artist, red, blue, and 1 for a 1/4. You can return her to your hand. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So basically, for splitting up 5 mana, you can copy any spell. Probably good in draft. I don't see this being a thing in standard. And this is definitely nothing in any other format, unless there's some weird combo out there I'm not thinking of right now, which, I mean, don't hold me to that because I'm sure there probably is. But point being, it's okay. Good draft card. Not bad. So practical research next. We have red, blue, and 3 colorless. Uncommon, instant, draw 4 cards, discard 2 cards unless you discard instant or sorcery card. I mean, it's a thing. I can think of better things to do with 5 mana. But anyway, make a 5/5 and bounce a creature and scry and draw 1. Anyway, moving on. So, Spectacle Mage, red, blue, and a colorless, 2/2, flying. Instant sorcery spells you cast with mana value 5 or greater cost 1 less to cast. All right, that's not bad. So that could make this a 4 mana spell, which is still not good enough to play. But anyway, moving on. The Prismari Pledge Mage, blue or red split mana, 2 mana for a 3/3 with Defender. The Magecraft here is whenever you copy or cast a spell, the Pledge Mage can attack as though it did not have Defender. So this might be a thing that kind of powers up some of those blue-red decks, not only to attack your opponent, but also to kind of stave off the aggro assault. So you have a 3/3 it's hard to deal with and have to waste a removal spell on. And if they don't, you just keep killing their creatures and punching them in the face. So, not too shabby. Will it see play? I think it really depends on what the meta looks like. If there's heavy aggro decks and this red-blue thing needs to be a thing, there'll be 4 of these in every one of them. Definitely. So, moving on. Our next group here. We'll start on this side again. This one here is Sinister Dominance. Or Sinister Dominance. For a black and 3. What it basically says here is instead of its actual cost, and this is an instant, you can play a 1 colorless and a black. If you do, your opponent draws a card. So you either pay 4, the opponent doesn't draw, or you pay 2 and they do. And the effect here is you exile a creature or planeswalker. So I think this is a big thing. Will it see play? I don't know, but the ability to exile a creature or planeswalker, even if it is for 4, just seems so good. Especially it starts for 1 black. And if you really have to, you can discount it down to 2. Although I don't like my opponent drawing cards. You can discount it down to 2 if you have to, if you're really in a tight bind. But I think this might be a playable card in Standard, at least. Just because for 4 mana and exiling a creature or planeswalker with an alternate casting cost, it could be a thing. Next here we have Defend the Campus. White 3 colorless. You choose one. Creatures get +1/+1 to the end of turn. Next, you destroy target creature power 4 or greater. For 4 mana, I mean, it's nice to have the option to pump your team. But let's be honest, if you have 3 or 4 guys that are hitting in even at 1/1s, I think of better things to do with 4 mana than just to get an extra 4 damage across unless it's the killing damage. Because if you got 4 or 5 1/1s on the field, you have bigger problems than pumping your team +1/+1. It's probably going to be the second option of, hey, let's kill that big fatty so my little bitty dudes can get across. So, I mean, in draft, this would be good. I think it'd be real good in draft. But I think that's where that card stops. So next, moving on here, we have Extos Orbic Overlord. If I can't pronounce this name, man, hell with that. So it's 2 black, a white, and a colorless. So 4 mana mythic. 2/4. It's a modal card apparently. It has double strike, so it's basically a 4/4. Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy a spell, return target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Whoa, daddy. Yeah. So that's definitely going to be a thing. There's that black card, Jarl's something. I forget what it exactly is, but it's 4 mana, I believe. It has Foretold. But the big thing about it has 4 mana. It's 3/2. When it comes in, a creature dealt damage instantly. It kills it when it comes into play. If creature's been dealt damage, so if you put it in your graveyard and you swing with this, since it has double strike, you hit the creature twice, and then you cast a spell, pick that thing up, play it as an instant, kill that creature, and since you had to cast an instant spell, you probably killed something else as well. So, not to mention just creatures in general, when you cast a spell, like it's a Gravedigger on crack. Like, it's the same casting cost, it's 4 mana, except this thing's a 2/4. It's a mythic, but it's a 2/4. It's bigger than a Gravedigger. It has double strike. It does 4 points of damage, more damage than a Gravedigger. It has a Magecraft, which is easier to get off than a Gravedigger. It can be done multiple times instead of a one-shot pony. Like, I think this thing is just bonkers good. I just don't see how doesn't get played in something. It's just amazing. The back side of the modal side of this thing, it's red-black, so not white-black. So I'm definitely seeing a 3-color theme here for this guy. But it's a black-red 6 colorless. As additional cost to casting a spell, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. The spell costs 2 less for each one you sacrifice. Each opponent sacrifices a creature, and you create a 3/6 black and red avatar creature token with haste that whenever this creature attacks, it deals 3 damage to each opponent. So that makes basically a 6/6 creature, except in commander or group games, it's 3 damage to each opponent. With this being the flip side to this, like if this is already on the field, you can sacrifice weenie creatures if you're playing a spirit deck, because I mean white-black, right? Like Lingering Souls and things like that. Like that. I mean, stay with me here. You get a couple of 1/1s out real easy and quick. Like 2 of them get this guy cast, and you're like, all right, I'm good to go. And maybe he gets killed, so you play a second one of him. And then once he's on the field, you cast a make two 1/1 tokens, Magecraft triggers, pick up the other version of him. You have 2 tokens, so now you can sacrifice those 2 tokens for 4 colorless mana, making this 4 mana, cast this side of it, make a 3/6, make them sack a creature where you can sack him, and then play another one of it. Yeah, like this is just a loop between the card. It's like the card itself has a loop where you can play this and get this because this is the front of the card. And then play this, which is a sorcery, goes to the graveyard, and you have this. And every time you cast something with this on the field, you pick the same card up and just keep casting this side of it. Like, I think that's going to be a thing, honestly. Like, this is like a one-card combo. I mean, you put 4 of these in a deck. All you want is this to stick on the field, and you cast this over and over, and then every time you cast any other spell for removal or whatever, you just use this to pick the whole card up again and keep casting this side of it. Like, how do you go wrong? I mean, yeah, like, I think that's going to be a thing. I really do. I mean, I kind of hope I'm wrong. That seems really annoying as hell, but I think it's going to be a thing. So, moving forward, for our next group, over here, uh, excuse me, we have Believed Poet. 2-1 for 2, it's a common. Basically, it says pay 2 life, it gains flying. I mean, fine for draft. I think that's about as far as this thing's going to go. Over here, we have the Enormous Disappointment, which is clearly this student. Black and 3 colorless. Each player loses 2 life, so each player, and then draw 2 cards. So basically, you go, you take 2, I take 2, I draw 2. So you're basically for 4 mana, like the old cards where you would take 2 life and draw 2 cards. You're also dealing 2 damage. So I think this is a pretty good common, especially in draft. This seems really sweet. Yeah, so I got high hopes for this. I think it's pretty sweet. Next here, we have Bat Eye, the 1 mana 1/1 flyer. When it dies, you learn. I think this is a great combo card with that card we just looked at, the 2/4, that when you cast a card, pick up a creature. You keep picking this up. It has learn on it. You let it die. You put it in the field. You sacrifice it to cast the backside of the card, so you make your 3/6 demon or what have you. So not only do you get that card out faster, but you sacrifice this, you get a good learn spell. Like, I think that's gonna be a thing. Like, I think this has some serious feat when it comes to the other black-white card that lets you basically Gravedigger every time you cast a instant or sorcery. Next here, we have the clever Lumimancer. Lumamancer. Yeah. Anyway, 1 white for an 0/1. Magecraft, whenever you cast an instant or copy an instant or sorcery spell, it gets +2/+2. That's just what we need. Let's take haste off the Swift Spear, make it a white card, and make it so anytime I cast anything that's not a creature, or anytime I cast an instant or sorcery, that it gets +2/+2. That's just what we need in this life. Not really. I see this going straight into the mono red decks, or the Boros decks in Modern. I mean, this is better than Swift Spear. Just because, yeah, it doesn't have haste, but you lay this on turn 1, Swift Spear on turn 1 attacks for 1. On turn 2, Swift Spear might attack for 2 if you cast 1 spell. If you cast 1 spell with this, it's attacking for 2, so you only lose 1 damage. You cast a second spell, the Swift Spear is now attacking for 3, plus the 1 from the first turn is 4. This is casting for 4. You're already ahead of the curve. Like, I see this being a powerful card, just like Swift Spear. And I really think it belongs in those decks, and I think it might go in those decks. I really think this might be a card for the Boros decks, along with Swift Spear. So keep an eye out for this. Foils of this card might be pricey. You might want to hang on to them until you find out if people actually start using this in the Boros deck in Modern. Because if they do, oh wow. And this could even be a thing in the standard version with all the lore hold cards that pump. Like, this thing could get big quick. So keep an eye on this card, I think. That's my personal opinion. I mean, that's what I thought the same thing when I seen a Swift Spear, and this is the same thing without haste, except it gets bigger every time you cast, and it just doesn't have a 1 in the front. And the difference in 1 power and 2 power at the end is irrelevant, because with 1 spell, they're the same size. They're 2 3s. So this is your new Swift Spear, guys, and it's white. So, just keep an eye on that. Mock my words. It's going to be a thing. So next here, over here, we have the Frost Trickster, a blue and 2 colorless for a 2/2 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls taps and doesn't untap during its next untap step. Because why wouldn't you want a Frost Lynx with flying? I mean, Frost Lynx is a card that's been in standard and good in draft forever for 3 mana as a 2/2 that does the exact same thing. But now let's put flying on it. That way, not only does it do this, But it does this, and it's hard to block. And it's still a common. Seems perfectly fair. Not really. I think this is a bit absurd. Should probably have been an uncommon. Anyway, next we have Sudden Breakthrough. Red and the colorless. Target creature gets +2/+0, gains first strike till end of turn, and you create a treasure token. This seems really good. Like I said, turn 1, lay the 0/1 white creature. Turn 2, you swing in with it. Use this for Magecraft. Not only do you get a treasure token to ramp into the next turn, so you can cast something for 4 mana on turn 3, but the +2/+2 plus this gives you a 4/3 with first strike. Ugh. That's going to be a draft nightmare. Next over here we have Resculpt, blue and colorless. Exile target artifact or creature. Its controller gets a 4/4 blue-red elemental creature token. Maybe. I mean, yeah, they get a 4/4, but if you're using this on something, it was probably going to kill you anyway. And it better be bigger than this. So, in draft, this could be a thing. I think it'd be a great combat trick when someone tries to kill your thing to make it a 4/4, so you should get the card out of their hand and maybe make one of your creatures bigger. So, I mean, in draft, it's okay, but I think that's as far as it goes. Next over here, we have the Culmination of Studies. A red, a blue, and an X. So, sorcery is rare. Exile the top X cards of your library. For each land card exiled this way, create a treasure token. Okay. For each blue card exiled this way, draw a card. Wow. For each red card exiled this way, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So, yeah, this could be pretty sweet. Although, you're exiling cards from the top of your library, and they're just gone. So maybe this is not a thing. I mean, maybe if you're running a straight red deck, maybe. I mean, technically this is a fireball. Worst case scenario, you hit land and don't get a complete fireball. This might be a thing. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the greatest thing. So moving on. Looks like this might be the last 4, guys. We have the Golden Ratio, a blue, a green, and a colorless for an uncommon sorcery. Draw a card for each different power among creatures you control. Hold the phone. So you're telling me for 3 mana, if I have something with 1 power, 2 power, and 3 power, that on turn 3, I can draw 3 cards for 3 mana. This seems like a bit much. I don't think people are going to take this card seriously as it should be. I think the only thing that's holding this card back is the fact it's in green-blue. But with that said, if you make a mono green deck that has the exact same thing I'm talking about, a 1 power, 2 power, 3 power, 4 power, and you splash blue just for this, like, I mean, 3 mana draw 2 is already a thing. Like, 3 mana, if you pull off a 3 mana draw 3, oh my god. It makes me want to throw up a little in my mouth. Yeah, I see definite possibilities for this. Especially with the green aggro decks and that mono green deck is floating around, this could become a serious issue. Next, we got the blue green land like the other ones. You know, it comes in tap, 2 colors, scries for 4, yada yada. Next here, we have the Kelpie Guide. It's a blue and 2 colorless for a 2/2. It's a beast uncommon for you tap it, and it says untap another target permanent you control. Tap target permanent. Activate only if you control 8 or more lands. So they made a blue icy manipulator creature. That's what this says. Also, the untap ability is amazing. It's mana ramp early for blue. Among any other thing you could possibly untap with it. I'm just being generalized here, guys. For 3 mana, you have a 2/2, which on turn 4, give you 5 mana. And then when you actually get all your land drops made late in the game, it's an icy manipulator. It says permanent, guys. You can tap lands, artifacts, anything. You can tap anything. Um, and it says if you control 8 or more lands, but it doesn't say that only on your turn. So it's a god to honest icy once you hit 8 lands or more. This is bonkers, guys. I would look for this to be a card in a blue control deck to do that stall that they always need to happen. Like, this is just crazy. Next over here, we have the teachings of the Arcanists, or whatever it's called. A blue and 2. It's a lesson, so this is probably busted because it's a rare. If opponent has more cards in hand than you, you draw 2 cards. Draw 3 cards instead. The opponent has at least 4 more cards in hand than you. So I definitely see this card being worth some money. I mean, we just talked about over here having a condition to get a draw 3. The only condition here is that you're behind. And if you're behind, this is the kind of thing you need to get you caught up. Also, worst case scenario, I mean, draw 2 for 3. Okay, that's on rate. Plus, it's a lesson, so you can go fetch it if you need to. Put one of these in your sideboard. And if when things get dire in late game or whatever, go jerk it out of your sideboard and draw 2 cards. Like, seems really good. But I guess time will tell. I mean, I guess all in all, if you're losing by 4 cards, like the game's already over, so it doesn't matter. It does say if an opponent, so this may be a big moneymaker for EDH in group games and things like that, because it's really easy in those group games for one person to run away, and while they're over there fighting each other, and you're over here trying to just get to your 4th or 5th land because your deck screwed you, and they've got 7, 8 cards in hand, you're down to 1 or whatever. You could easily pull this out, draw 4 cards, and get right back in the game in an EDH, because it could be any opponent, right? It says an opponent. If you have 3 opponents, if any one of them have that, you get to draw the 3 cards. So yeah, I think this might be a thing for EDH, Commander's Crews and group games. So with that in mind, that may drive the price of this up. So I wouldn't count it out just yet. It may take it a little while to catch on, but I think it will. I mean, especially for blue decks. So, and that's all we got, guys. Uh, that's it for today. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks for tuning in with me and checking out all the new cards from Strixhaven. Really do appreciate it. And as always, guys, get ready. We're going to time to get back out there to your local LGS, local game store. Play some Magic in person. Sleeve them cards back up. See your friends and family again. And as always, guys, once you're out there, be kind, and the captain will see you next time. Until next time, guys, I'll see you then. Toodaloo.